The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of old. That's right, that's what we're looking at today, is Proverbs 8, verse 22. And today we're going to see that wisdom is distinct but one. That's what we see here when we read that the Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work. Now, in my notes of my Bible, it says there's a footnote for the word possessed. It says fathered, could be for possessed, or in the Septuagint, created. Now, this is the same idea, same word that is often translated as begotten as well. So God possessed, created, or had begotten wisdom at the beginning of his ways or his work. Now, what is that talking about? At the beginning of creation, right? God possessed or brought forth wisdom. And so you see that at the very beginning, everything that God did had wisdom in it. Every creation, every part of creation, everything that he created has the marks of wisdom. It's not done by happenstance. It's not done by chance, random blind chance, and the natural laws themselves, what we call natural laws in science, are really wise. It's wisdom. Think about how all these things work. You have DNA, which is basically like code that's written, and everything is coded. It has all these to create the beings that exist, and the plants and animals and everything else. It has the DNA, so it's coded into it how these things would come about. And it takes wisdom. That takes intelligence. It's the argument for intelligent design. Yes, it's true. And that has, it's not probably the best argument, but it's true. How could you? Most people would not argue against the fact that it looks like it was intelligently designed. They might say, yeah, it looks like it, but that's just because it looks like it doesn't mean it actually is, which is true. That is a true point. Just because something looks like it was created doesn't actually mean that it was created. But it's hard to look past the fact that there's so many details. It's so intricate. It's hard to pick up like one of those old pocket watches and open up the back with all the wheels and the gears and all that, and then think, this looks like it's created, but it could come about by just natural laws and randomness. We'd be hard pressed to find anyone to be like, oh yeah, sure, I would believe that. I would definitely believe that. The possibilities are so minuscule. You'd have to. That's where like the idea of the multiverse comes in, right? Because you'd have to have like, we just happen to live. It's great that we just happen to live in a universe, one of the multiple universes, where all these things just happen to come together. And so you have to posit this idea of multiverse, even though we have no proof of it. Like, is it possible? Yeah, well, all things are possible. But can you prove it? No, but you have to posit that so that you could say, well, see, there's a possibility that all these things just came about by random processes and by the natural laws of the universe. And you just happen to have the right natural laws. You just happen to have, in this universe, you just happen to have everything just line up perfectly. Beyond the probabilities, it was all just perfectly lined up, because if there's a universe for every possibility, then you just happen to be in the one that has it, and you won the great cosmic lottery that you're in, because there'd be like countless, almost infinite amount of universes that just didn't happen. Right? And nothing happened because everything has to align perfectly. So that's where they kind of bring in. It's like, well, we'll bring in the shadow of doubt here, right? Let's bring in that little bit of doubt, because otherwise you have to argue, if there's only one universe, you have to argue that everything worked out just right in just this one. Now, is that possible? Again, shadow of doubt. Oh, okay, yeah. It could be possible, but is it? The probabilities are ridiculous. So, but that's what you have to argue for, right? And so you can create that shadow of doubt there so that you feel comfortable with the idea that even though everything looks like it's designed, there still is just a hint of a chance that it wasn't. So that's how the world, reasons that out. When we see here that with wisdom, it says the Lord, Yahweh, possessed me at the beginning of his work, the first acts of old. So this idea of begotten or possession or having wisdom at the beginning, we see it's distinct, but it's one with God, right? It was always with God. Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work. So at the beginning of work, there was wisdom. Wisdom was with him. Wisdom was right there alongside the Lord. And so we see this kind of idea is also the same for Christ. Now, you can see that Jesus is the only begotten Son. We say that idea, begotten, that the Lord, Yahweh, possessed the Son, that the Son was with the Lord, with God, from the beginning. Jesus was God from the beginning. And we see that, John 1:1-2, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. And so you have that idea right there in John 1:1-2, that Jesus was that, and so was wisdom. And then Psalm 2:7, I will tell of the decree, the Lord said to me, you are my son, today I have begotten you. Today I have possessed you. Today I have created you, in that sense. Not that Jesus is a created being, which is what the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Mormons to a certain extent would teach. But this is the idea of proceeding forth, not in the same sense that children proceed forth from us. That this a lesser of the idea that the Son is eternally begotten, eternally possessed, eternally, of God. And so that's the idea here, is that we always have this idea. And so you can see right away why people would say, okay, I can see Jesus in this, because Jesus was eternally begotten. He was always begotten of God, always with the Lord in that sense. And so that's the first one. So Jesus is like wisdom, or wisdom is like Jesus, in that it was distinct but one with God. Jesus is a distinct person of God, but he's one with God. And so you see that in wisdom right here. So that's the end of our study for today. Come back next time and we will look at the next point, which is that wisdom is eternal. Wisdom is eternal. So that kind of, the idea of creation is the problem. If wisdom was created, and the Septuagint uses the word created, which is a problem even within the context for wisdom. And we'll see that next time as we look at it. So come back for that.